I thought I'd throw out a few just gratitude things. Anytime I see God at work, I know that my top of mind conscious is actually giving him less thanks than he deserves because I move on to the next thing. I move on to the next thing and I forget to give thanks. So a bunch of what happens today is purposeful to get my heart stirred up in gratitude because before God moves again, often we give thanks for what he's done in the past. So just for fun, I'm going to share my screen and show the first year's highlight video of Fathers for the Fatherless. Just like it's a minute and a half long. But this is one way to kind of give a visual to you guys of look what God has done and is doing.
Time on this ride where you're going to be like, this is stupid. What was I thinking? Because here's the thing, we're fathers, we're riding for those who, even if they have fathers, maybe they aren't there to protect them. Due to the circumstances that they find themselves in, these are people who need God the Father to provide for them, to care for them, to do all those things that a father does. When you're suffering today, think about that, right? When it hurts, think about these people that we're trying to share God's glory with. But if we are to share his glory, we must also share his suffering.
So that's our prayer today as we ride. We're praying to bring our Father glory, and we're praying and we're riding because we believe God's great love for kids that don't have dads. We're viewed it as brothers, and I believe that's part of God's plan, is that we experience fatherhood with other dads.
This is what we're doing. You are not done yet. We are fighting against the principalities of darkness. So fight through with your legs, with your heart, with your prayer. We are going to overcome today.
We thought, man, what if we got like 20 guys? What if we could raise $10,000? That would be amazing. That would be amazing if we could help partners with that kind of money and raised 20 guys willing to bike 100 miles. And that year it ended up being about 18,000 raised and 26 guys that were on the team. And that was back in 2019. And the whole thing started with, I was actually in a moment of worship in my local church, and I felt God impress, get the guys after a mission beyond ourselves. Instead of rallying guys to let's learn and grow together. Let's learn and grow together. And let's go do for others. Let's go take action to help kids that don't have a dad. So that was where it came from. It was 2 phone calls, one to Tyler Sievely. What do you think of this crazy idea? That was his voice. You just heard a moment ago. The other phone call was to Paul Herkman, who you'll hear from in just a little bit. And I said, Paul, what do you think? Should we do this? Should we do a 50-mile ride? That feels about right. 50 miles feels pretty hard to me. Because at that point, my longest ride is like 25 miles. And him and Tyler both said, why don't you go for 100? So now we're 21 100-mile rides. That's how many events we've done around the country. Actually, there was one ride in Spain and one in Mexico as well. We've added then 3 triathlons that we've done so far. We've done a running event and 2 Spartan races. And speaking of Spartan, John Wyatt, can I kick to you for a quick second? You're mid-lunch break in the car. Take yourself off mute, say hello, and if you could just briefly talk about what's happened the last 2 years. And by briefly, like 2 or 3 minutes, what's happened in Jacksonville, Florida?
Man, Jeff, thanks so much for having me on, and please forgive the multitasking here today. But man, when you reached out to me and said you were with your bros and you're like, hey, we want to add a Spartan to the Dad Awesome, to the Fathers to the Fatherless mission, and we want to come. It's February, and we want to come to Florida from Minnesota because Minnesota is not where you want to be in February. You want to be in Jacksonville. It's the first time I've ever done a Spartan. I didn't really know much about them. And it was the greatest call of my life. Because, we rallied a few guys last year. It was awesome. We had a great team for our first time out. This year, it got even a little more traction. We had 19 guys in this year's Spartan here in Jacksonville. And for us, as a church family, we got a pretty large church here in Jacksonville. There's a ton more guys every year. They see it, and they're like, man, I'm totally doing that next year. So it started something great. And we actually are launching, post-COVID, kind of during COVID, everything's shut down. A lot of the ministries shut down. One of those was our athletics ministry and even our men's ministries. And so now we're relaunching those. And one of the guy that's over all that, Tyler Lavaseur, he actually was in the Spartan race with us this year. So this is going to be a big part of our church life going forward for guys and for people who love athletics and people who care about the fatherless. We're hoping to continue to grow every single year.
Thank you, John. And it's amazing because the mission was still accomplished. Men doing something hard, training together, showing up, competing together, helping each other through, just like the cycling mission. But this only required a pair of tennis shoes, a pair of muddy tennis shoes, and required maybe a little less training time. You know, maybe 6 weeks of training, you could be ready for a Spartan versus it's
I
closer
don't know
to
about
12 for a
that,
100
brother.
mile.
I spent a lot
Yeah,
more time training than that, man. I wanted to dominate the rope and the beater and all those other hard obstacles this year, man. It took me a long time to train at 51.
see, I love that add-on, and it does, because you fail certain. There's 25 obstacles, and I failed certain obstacles, and then I wanted to train to go and then help other people be ready. Let's go. I can take that obstacle down that beat me up and made my hands bloody the first year. I can take it down the next year. So we're so grateful. We got a local partner, C Mark Ranch, that does incredible work in northern Florida. John, just a quick moment on what C Mark Ranch, their focus.
Yeah, our church has been partnered with them for a long time, over 15 years. When they first got some land to build basically homes for kids that they're abandoned, their families are just not able to support them. They go into the foster system, and this group home setup is just a perfect fit for them. Just some of the biggest organizations, biggest companies in Jacksonville rally around this C Mark Ranch, and so they've done a really great job for our city and for our region of caring for kids, boys and girls that just don't have families. And so they've added, over the last few years, they've added educational components. They've added great recreational components. They actually host a mud run in April.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to miss that, unfortunately, this year. I ran it last year after the Spartan, and it was really fun. They had several thousand people come out and participate in that as a fundraiser. So we just love C-Mark. They're doing a great work with the group homes and the people that serve there and live with those kids and provide a home and a family for them.
Thank you. In about 15 minutes here, we'll hear from our global partner, Paul Herkman and Venture, our global partner. But I'm going to jump over to Casey for a moment. So our local partner the last few years in the Twin Cities has been the Real Hope Project. Mike Evans introduced me to Casey and the team and said, you've got to learn more about what this ministry does. And we've been thrilled to raise funds for the work of the Real Hope Project. And Casey, thank you for your leadership. Can you take just a couple minutes to share? One, has a group of men in spandex ever come to you saying, we want to help raise money for your mission before? Has that ever happened before?
It has not. The unique experience. Yeah.
Okay, so we got that one. We're the only team that's come. And then we've just been thrilled to hear it, because you have such concrete stories of this is how these funds are used to help kids find forever homes. So would you just share for a few moments about the mission and what you guys are up to and how long you've been up to that mission?
Yes, I would love to. John, C Mark Ranch sounds incredible. Fun to hear a little bit about it. So Real Hope, what we do is we make videos of kids in the foster care system who are waiting to be adopted. And then we bring their videos to churches every Sunday, and we highlight kids and try to find a forever family for every child. So this came out of my husband and my own desire to adopt, and just seeing that the church has such a beautiful heart for kids and a beautiful heart for kids who need families. And it's not that the church doesn't care about kids in the system. It's just that when we think of kids who need families, we typically think of overseas, or we think of babies, and we're just not always aware that there's kids, right here in our own schools and neighborhoods and communities who are waiting for families. So in 2016, my husband and I launched the Real Hope Project, and then got connected with Jeff in 2021. I think end of 2021, that fall, was the first time we were connected. So just over 2 years now. And Fathers for the Fatherless has gifted such significant dollars to us. And in the last 2 years, we have expanded outside of Minnesota into 7 different states now to be able to serve more kids. We served double the kids in 2023 that we had in 2022. And we're on track to grow that again this year. So this is kind of our homepage on our website. Is one of our most recent videos of these 2 sweet guys. But we are now active in all of these states. Wow. Making videos of kids every week. In March, we're making 16 videos. So it's like a video shoot every other day, which is a little bit insane. My team is drowning just a bit, but they'll be fine. So just to give you a glimpse of what some of the videos look like. just such fun kids, and we get to highlight these kids, and we all know, I know you guys are very aware of what happens when kids don't have families, don't have dads. The statistics are really quite sobering, and so we just believe Jesus and family are the keys to transformation in our communities and in society in general. I also wanted to just show you, this is like our current shoot planning. So yeah, here's our 16 shoots in the month of March and the different states that we're serving in. And then this is really fun to see too. There's 25 more that are booked in the next 8 weeks. And then another, I think it's 26 or something over here, that this means they're like in the process of being scheduled, which, as you can imagine, kids in the system, their lives are pretty volatile, pretty transient. And so getting a shoot to actually land on the calendar to coordinate our videographer, our shoot lead, the child schedule, their social worker schedule, their foster home schedule, their therapist schedule, birth family visits, all the things that have to like line up for a shoot to happen. Every little shoot is like a tiny little miracle. We have made reels now for over 400 kids, I think 410, and 208 of those kids have now been matched with forever families. So we are pretty excited about that. And our kids really are the toughest to place kids, just because of the demographics that they follow. You know, they're older, they're teenagers, they're sibling groups, or have some unique needs. And so we are just praising God. 208 kids now have the stability of a lifelong forever family. And we just believe God has so much more in store. So thank you to all of you, all of the dads and the future dads. It's like been such a gift to have this partnership, and I just can't say enough about it.
Casey, our teams often, before we start the bike ride, or before we start the Spartan race or the triathlon, we'll huddle up and pray. And if our teams were all like in that moment, hearing what you just shared, the level of like we're like ready to take on the world in that moment, there's the pre-race like excitement, the level of cheering you would have heard from our team in that moment. Like, we're on a Zoom call right now, so you're not hearing that amount of cheering, but just imagine like our heart and our celebration for what you lead and the work that you guys do, and the thrill like of us being able to help fuel a portion of that with our work. It's the gift is more like, I feel like we get the gift more than you guys have received the gift, because we get to share in that testimony and the stories and each of those kids when we think forward to generations forward of those kids having forever homes. So thank you.
Yes, thank you guys.
I am going to jump into our next video, because I'm going to take us through a little bit of the history of Fathers for the Fatherless as we share some stories. So
on this ride, where you're going to be like, this is stupid. What was I thinking? We're fathers, we're riding for those who, even if they have fathers, maybe they aren't there to protect them. These are people who need God the Father. When you're suffering today, think about that, right? When it hurts, think about these people that we're trying to share God's glory with. And then here's the other thing. We must also share His suffering. As you're riding your bike, invite you into the suffering of these people who don't have fathers.
that was 2020. Let's go right into 2021.
And love riding with these guys, and I love the cause Fathers for the Fatherless. Believing that some kids are going to find some families as a result of what we're doing today. Care for widows, look after orphans. It's about recognizing those who are marginalized, those that don't have a voice. You put sweat equity into it, you put financial equity into it, believing that it's going to advance the kingdom. And don't let what you can't do keep you from doing what you can. There's just a bunch of ordinary guys out here pushing ourselves, breaking a sweat for a kingdom cause.
3 years ago, this crazy idea started of what if we gather around a mission? What if instead of self-help, we said, what if we go activate dads on purpose for a bigger cause and see what happens in the lives of these dads and their families if we do that? And this has become Fathers for the Fatherless. This has become now 250 dads across the country saying we want to be a part of this.
So that's the last, so that's year. Now we've seen 3 of the recap videos. I haven't been able to pull off a film crew at every event. there's some challenges. So the largest events have had a film crew, and so those of you guys watching from other states, like John in Jacksonville, it's just a matter of time, and we'll activate the drone and the GoPro cameras in other locations. Let's see. Let's jump to Taylor. Taylor, can you come off mute for us for a second? So we pivoted like year 3, year 4 into we tried a running event, and then Taylor came to me and said, "What if we do a triathlon?" And I'd just love to hear a little bit about, from your perspective, Taylor, taking the mission into triathlons, and then now even what we're about to do here in about 10 weeks. And it's just maybe a story or two of like, this is how you see it impacting men.
Sure. Thanks for having me on, Mr. Jeff. I want to start off by saying no one can fire up a crowd like Paul Herkman can. Holy cow. I mean, every kickoff speech he does before the 100-mile rides, it's just everyone gets so fired up. It's great. So my first year that I did the ride was 2021, and then have done it each year since then. And 2 summers ago, me and a couple of my close buddies who had participated in the 100-mile ride, we all signed up for the Minnetonka Sprint Triathlon, just as a new fun thing for us to do. A lot of us live just like 5-10 minutes away from there, so it was a really easy thing to do. And so we ended up getting like 15 or 20 guys signed up for that. And so I reached out to Jeff and said, "Hey, would you mind if we unofficially did a team?" And so we contacted our friends over at Pactimo and got triathlon suits made with the previous year's bike jersey. And so we did that race with a big group of people, and the entire time people are like, who are you guys? What is this thing? Because we're all in matching kit. So it was really, really fun to do. And then last year was our first official launch of the official triathlon team. And we had close to 30 guys do that, which was really, really fun. Much different than the 100-mile bike ride, because maybe a little bit less opportunity for group training, while at the same time, for a lot of people, it feels like just a new challenge, because for most people, the swimming feels terrifying for people. But it went off really, really well. We're able to create a really cool community around that. And then this year, somehow I was able to convince almost 25 people to do a half Ironman distance triathlon down in Chattanooga, Tennessee. So we got a big Airbnb, rented a big van, going to transport all the bikes down there, and getting people down there for a race that, if you're doing it quick, if you're doing it really fast, you're going 5 hours. So most people are going to be ending between probably 5.5 and 7 hours. So long time out there, big commitment to training. But what I love about Fathers for the Fatherless and doing these hard training events is, one, it turns something that to me feels very selfish into something that has meaning and purpose. And what I can always, what I'm a big believer in, and I know this is true to a lot of people that are involved in fathers with any of these endurance events, is if you can mix something that you like with something that you are good at, and it's wrapped around a cause that breaks your heart or you're passionate about, to me, and within that you're building community, getting guys together that otherwise would have no excuse to be together, and then now you're branching off and creating these Bible studies or these other things off of it. To me, it's an absolute no-brainer. So Jeff, it's something for me that's been super fun to be a part of over the past couple years, and that I intend to be part of for the foreseeable future. So yeah.
Thank you, Taylor. And part of it for me, I think some athletes, there's a level of, if you do the same thing over and over again, you lose the, like, I'm pushing into new levels of suffering. I'm pushing into new levels of, it's a little scary. My first triathlon was very scary. And then the next one, if you do the same distance, less scary. And that's a good thing, because we're growing more strength, more like we're growing in the right direction. So I mean, this 70.3, I am the most scared I've been in all of the F4F things I've done in 5 years. Like going to do a half Ironman. I'm taking training like more seriously than ever, and it's just been a sacrifice for my family that I have to keep reminding them of the vision of why are we doing this thing. So it's actually really good for me to have to remind my girls like this is why I'm training, and this is why the mission matters, and this is what our team's going to do, and the money we're going to raise. And so dad is suffering, is what they've seen lately, way more than the last few years. Is this timing couldn't be better because Taylor just talked about Paul Herkman. And then he appears. Paul, how are you?
I'm great. How are you fellas doing?
Paul was one of those first calls that I mentioned earlier at the beginning of the call. Like I called him and said, is this idea crazy? Is this a good idea? Is this a bad idea? And he has been the guy who's put his arm around me for 5 years saying, we're with you. How can Venture help you take this movement wherever God has for it? And Paul, I'm very grateful for you. There's a dual side because we get the thrill of helping to resource and fund some of the projects that Venture leads. But then we've been supported by 20 years of what Venture has learned and the infrastructure and support, and the team has come around this to help us actually create what now is Fathers for the Fatherless. So it's just something I'm very grateful for the partnership. And Paul, I was hoping you could just share a little update with us on this is what Ventures had the opportunity to be a part of because of the partnership and some of the funds we've helped to raise. Can you give us a little flyover of the mission and some of the impact points?
Yeah, absolutely. Fellas, for those of you who are rejoining from the past years, I want to say thank you again on behalf of Venture. I was just in another call, and one of our other team members talked about how everybody on our team was crush it kind of people. And then I jumped on and I said, I'm clearly not. I am not a crush it person. I want to thrive. I want to flourish. I want to have a cup of coffee, but I am motivated by Hebrews 10. It's either 29 or 39. It's why I'm not a pastor anymore and just Christian nonprofit, because I can get the concept. I can never get the chapter and verse. But in Hebrews 10:39, I believe it says, we are not of those who shrink back and are destroyed, but those who persevere and live by faith. And I love that concept, one, in the midst of training and training rides and the final century and Ironmans and Spartans and all of those things. But I love it for life because crush it is one thing, but getting to the end of the goal, to persevere. And in this case, in this conversation on behalf of other people, seems to be one of the most gospel things that we can do wherever you're at on this call. You might be super spiritual like me or more like Jeff. It doesn't matter. But anywhere in the spectrum of that, we have the opportunity to be part of this redemptive story. And so Venture, we specifically work in tough areas, 3 uns, unsafe, unreached, and under-resourced, unsafe places where there's the longest ongoing civil war and refugee crisis, most closed country where less than even 9 people can't meet in groups of 9. We have places where 18 months ago, we lost 3 people were killed for sharing the gospel. I just got called last week. We've got 25 pastors that are imprisoned currently. In another part of the world, we work with anti-trafficking and villages where between 70 and 90% of the girls are being trafficked. So that's the unsafe, unreached is they haven't heard the gospel. They just haven't heard that there's a God that's not mad at them, and there's a design where they get to flourish in under-resourced places where less than 1% of all Christian giving goes. Those are the places we want to be. Those are the tough places. And so when you ride, when you're training, when you're talking, when you're doing that, what seems like that difficult work of recruiting and then asking for donations, all those things are happening to go not to me. We are partnering so it goes to the most vulnerable places. And I'm always kind of stuck when I talk to a group between stats and stories. The statistics, I literally was listening to a podcast that said this morning that there are 18.4 million children that live without a father in their home right in the US. And in my home, both my home of origin, I had a dad who lived there. And in my current home, I have 5 kids who have a dad, but recognizing that that's not always the case. And so that that even colors how I understand Fathers for the Fatherless, how we talk online. And I love the dual mission of both the fatherlessness. I'm going to say epidemic without trying to victimize or villainize. Over to what we do in the areas where we serve. Specifically, the last few years, we've focused on the Thai-Myanmar border. In Myanmar right now, there are 1.95 million displaced people inside of Myanmar, displaced by a military coup, displaced by ethnic genocide, displaced where literally landmines are put around their village and moved off of it. And what ends up happening, they're currently conscripting people into the army as young as 16 and 17. And it's the longest ongoing civil war. And the reason why I set all that up is because it's created its own fatherless epidemic, fatherlessness epidemic. And so we have strategically partnered in that area with food, but food is a bridge. Food is a bridge to education and education to citizenship. When you are stateless, when you are homeless, most of the time in this country, that means you are actually not considered a citizen, you don't have education. And so we are talking about food as a starting point to sustainability, to citizenship, and then connecting them to the hope of the gospel. And so I want to just share for just a couple of minutes 3 pictures that I hold in tension to those stats. And the first picture, there's a video of Rosebell, and we were just doing an end of year video because we provided more than 10.7 million meals just last year. And there's a picture of 2 boys, and they're helping to get food off of a truck. And this is food that they're going to partake of themselves. It's food that y'all helped if you rode last year, that you helped with. Their story behind that picture is they were dying of hunger, and so they worked an opium field, and their diet was actually chewing on, I want to say, opium leaves. I'm not well versed. I know you see the long hair and you think I am. I don't know about the drugs. But these boys were literally addicted and eating opium as a source of nutrients, and then forced to work on the opium fields. Because of the meals, they not only don't have to work on the opium fields, but then they were introduced to long-term safe housing as well as education. So these are kind of the very real stories. And then I think of Rosabelle, and Jeff, you're more than welcome to share this video, but Rosabelle at 15 felt like she should take in 1 fatherless child at 15 with she was not living with her parents. She was not married. She took 1 in. By the time she was married at 18, she took in 10. And by the end of the video, spoiler alert, Rosebell takes care of 5,000 orphans, 5,000 people that currently either their father has died because of disease or illness or hunger, or was killed within the military conflict. Some of them are just gone because of the military conflict, but she takes care of 5,000. And on top of that, she cares for 300 widows, which is also very tangential in the same book that we read that encourages us to take care of orphans, also says widows as well. And then the last one, and I will turn it back over to Jeff, is this picture. And the picture is really somewhat innocuous. It looks like a developing country in the middle of the city, early morning, if you read the caption. And there's just a long line, and then there's another picture and another picture. And what you end up, if you look through these pictures, it's a line 8 hours long to get gas. And the person taking the picture is a young woman named Cuckoo, who is waiting 8 hours in line to get gas to take the meals that you are going to be training and raising money for, because she is so committed to these fatherless, these orphans, that they need to get food, that she will sit in line for 8 hours. And so when I think of those pictures, the boys on the truck that no longer have to work in the opium field, and Rosabelle, who is caring for and holding the burden of 5,000 orphans or people waiting in line 8 hours, what I think is it's our moment to match that tenacity. Um, It's our moment, especially I'm going to say for those of you who are new, because compassion fatigue is real, both in terms of re-upping, re-inviting, asking for money. But now this is where, Jeff, when I get off, you're going to have to be nice because I'm not going to be nice for a minute. Compassion fatigue is real, but it is the product. It's a luxury for us. It is the product of our privilege because there is not a person in a story that I just told you that has compassion fatigue. When that person is sitting in their car for 8 hours to get gas, to get food, to kids that will otherwise die, they don't have the option of compassion fatigue. When Rosabelle gets up in the morning, she doesn't go, well, I'm going to take a few days off because it's hard to ask for more food because she has 5,000 orphans that need her to respond to what she's supposed to do. I am in no way shaming anybody on this call or anybody that does or doesn't, but we do have to understand if we are going to honor the stories of the people that we get to serve alongside of, if we are going to match their tenacity, we have to understand where we enter into the story, and we are not the center. We are so blessed to come alongside, and I speak this way because I didn't start Venture. I don't receive a dime of anything that you all raise, and I know that it's difficult. My family decides once a year that we go to social media and raise money this way through Miles. We do it once a year because compassion fatigue is real. But as leaders on this call, we have to fight that. We have to not grow weary in doing good, as Galatians says, because in the end, there is a reward, there is a harvest. We have to be people that will not shrink back, but that will persevere and live by faith. This is the calling. And again, I don't know where everybody is at in their spiritual journey, but as humans, to be a part of a story that invites us to help other people, even at our detriment, to move from comfortable to less comfortable, because we get to be alongside, not because you get anything out of it, not because you take a cut of the money, not because Jeff or me, but because it goes through and we help those who are in a different place than we are. Do not feel bad because compassion fatigue is an option for you. Don't feel bad, but also don't go gently into that good night. Decide at the end of this call that we are going to step in and that we are going to figure out in our own voice, not my voice, because you don't want to be the angry long-haired dude, okay? I just get too many emails of bodies that are burnt up, or girls that are raped, or kids that are dying of hunger, to get on and just say nice things to everybody. What I want to say is thank you. And I want to try to echo the words of the unruly rabbi on the side of the mountain that says that the kingdom looks different and you're invited to something different. And that different is hope. That different is something that we can all sign up for. That's something that we can invest in. And minus the fact that I might step into a 3-point sermon, and certainly all 3 points would have the same starting letter, I'm going to turn it back over to Jeff. It is an honor to serve with you, man.
Paul, grateful for you. It's shared. You saying it's an honor to partner with us. It's a privilege. These events that we had I never saw this coming. The guys in the call, we didn't see this coming, but look at what we've got. We've had the privilege to be a part of, and what we have the privilege to step into again this year. And I think this is where kind of why I want to land our call today is we don't gravitate towards having these kind of conversations we're having right now. We don't gravitate aimlessly towards doing hard things. We don't gravitate towards sharing the story of how God is at work locally and globally. We don't gravitate towards inviting friends to raise money for something that's right at the center of God's heart. We have to be invited into it. And that's the only way that this vision has grown, is that we have all been invited in at some point, either personally, most of us it's personally, or we heard about through our church or through a pocket of friends or a social media post we heard about and said, I want to step into this. But truly the only way this grows is men need to be invited in. And then kind of the next step beyond that is we've seen every year about 15% of our men will sign up to join Fathers for the Fatherless. And various reasons, they will actually not follow through and do the ride or the triathlon or the Spartan. What happens is you sign up for an event, and if life circumstances get hard or busy or this or that, you can call it in your heart a donation to a good cause and then just peace out. But what science shows and what the Bible says is that we need to be men who follow through on our commitments. And it's good for our kids. It's good for our own soul. It's good for our circle of friends, our neighborhoods, our communities, men who do hard things and stick with it when it gets hard. And so the reason I share this is we found that there's three things. So one, I just want to invite you guys to be inviters this year, to be inviters to this vision, this mission, because it cascades down into our families. It cascades to all of our partners, the work we've heard about through just a few of our partner spotlights today. Be inviters. That's the first. Second, though, is this idea of people sticking with their commitments. As soon as somebody goes public with I'm going to do this Spartan, I'm going to do this triathlon, I'm going to do this ride. Going public is a big deal. Just sharing broadly, either on social media or through a text to some friends, or just share that you're going to do it, helps a ton. Second thing is, as soon as somebody is connected with a circle of friends, so Taylor could testify to this, as soon as you actually meet the people on the team, you go out for your first training swim together, you're much more likely to follow through because now you've met and looked in the eyes of somebody else who's going to go after this mission. Then the third thing is, as soon as you've started fundraising, as soon as you asked a friend or family member or a business associate to make a donation to your cause, you're much more likely to stick with it, because we don't want to be that person who asks others to sacrifice and that we don't sacrifice. So I just want to remind you guys that the invite is huge, but also getting the guys to take those next steps of actually owning the vision, committing to the vision, meeting the other guys that are going to do the vision together, and then actually begin fundraising for the vision. Those steps make it so much more sticky and make the odds of people going and doing the thing and the transformation attached to actually following through with our commitments much, much higher. So I wasn't part of the agenda, but I felt compelled to share that little bit with you guys as we kind of wrap our time down. There was a few other people that were going to share a few words, but either tech issues or they were just weren't able to hop on. I had a guy in Arizona that wanted to say hello and say just gratitude for the mission. A guy in New York. We are stepping into triathlons, bike rides, and these obstacle course races this year. All of them are listed. There'll be a follow-up email just with ways we can actually keep recruiting, keep building these teams. But the purpose of today is to say, look what God has done. And man, I'm expectant. He's up to more. He's up to more. So thanks for joining today, guys. Really grateful for each of you. I'm going to say a quick prayer. God, thank you for these men. Thanks for the men who watched the recording. Thank you for our partners and the unimaginable but life-changing work that they get to be a part of. And God, I pray your protection over them and your refreshment over them, our partners. And God, thank you for the team that you're going to bring together. And we look at this $1 million threshold that we believe you're going to bring in this year to kind of surpass that on our 6th year. And we're just praying that you would do that and more to help us be a part of fundraising for these partners. God, I just pray this would be a year that we can look back at and say, wow. And we're expecting it's going to happen. So thank you so much, God, for these men. In Jesus' name, amen.